The news that Russia is accelerating the distribution of Russian passports to residents in the territories it has occupied in Ukraine ahead of the planned voting in Russia on September 10th indicates an effort to further consolidate its control in these regions. This strategy also serves to further legitimize Moscow's claim to these territories in the eyes of the local populace, as it seems to offer them a chance to participate in the political process, albeit a process defined and controlled by Russia. The reported conditioning of access to services, like social benefits and medical care on possession of a Russian passport, is another tactic aimed at coercing the local population into accepting Russian citizenship. This is particularly troubling, as it infringes upon the rights of individuals in these regions and adds to the hardships faced by those living in a conflict zone. This development provides a clearer picture of the tactics that Russia is employing in its strategy towards the occupied territories. It also underscores the challenges that Ukraine faces in maintaining its sovereignty and the rights of its citizens in these regions. As such, it serves as a stark reminder of the complexity of the ongoing conflict and the significant role that international support and attention can play in countering these tactics. The International Monetary Fund's (IMF) decision to complete the first review of the Extended Fund Facility (EFF) program for Ukraine and approve the immediate allocation of the second tranche is a positive development for Ukraine, especially in its time of conflict. This tranche, amounting to SDR 663.9 million, or approximately $890 million, will be directed towards supporting the budget of Ukraine. The IMF statement acknowledges the successful progress made by Ukrainian authorities towards fulfilling their commitments under the EFF, despite the challenging conditions they are facing. All quantitative performance criteria through the end of April and structural benchmarks through the end of June have been met. However, the IMF emphasizes that Ukraine must maintain a high level of commitment to its reform program to ensure macroeconomic and financial stability in the challenging period ahead. It also highlights the importance of pursuing an integrated strategy for critical spending during recovery and reconstruction, including in areas such as energy and procurement. This demonstrates the IMF's continued support for Ukraine and its economic stability, which is crucial in light of the ongoing conflict and its impact on the country's economy. However, it also highlights the need for Ukraine to continue implementing reforms and improving its fiscal management to secure future support. European Union leaders are endorsing a proposal to levy a windfall tax on profits derived from over 200 billion euros worth of Russian central bank assets. The revenue generated will be utilized for Ukraine's reconstruction, as reported by Bloomberg. The EU is seeking the political endorsement of influential group of 7 countries. Prior discussions with Washington have taken place, and the dialogue is expected to continue in the forthcoming days and weeks. The United Kingdom has previously expressed support for this income utilization strategy. However, the concept of taxing and confiscating these unexpected profits presents both legal and financial challenges, as per Bloomberg's sources. The Prime Minister of Poland, Mateusz Morawiecki, has expressed his country's interest in participating in NATO's nuclear sharing program, in light of Russia's plans to station tactical nuclear weaponry in Belarus. He emphasized that the final decision hinges on the American and NATO partners, expressing Poland's readiness to act swiftly on this issue. Morawiecki underlined the need for proactive steps as opposed to passive observation in the face of Putin's escalating threats. NATO's nuclear sharing program is designed for nuclear deterrence, permitting the allocation of nuclear warheads to alliance members who do not possess their own nuclear arsenal. The Danish government is set to provide military aid to Ukraine, allocating a budget of around 1.3 billion Danish kroner, approximately 170 million euros. As stated by the Ministry of Defense of Denmark, the aid package encompasses air defense missiles, ammunition, equipment for clearing mines, and funding for the acquisition of artillery shells. Acting Minister of Defense, Troels Lund Poulsen, stressed the necessity of persistent support for Ukraine. He explained that the substantial and meaningful assistance was assembled in response to Ukraine's needs and is aimed at backing the country's ongoing defense against the Russian invasion. As the conflict seems to be prolonged, Poulsen added that these significant contributions, alongside those from Denmark's allies, deliver a powerful message of sustained support for Ukraine. On June 30th, a Russian political figure and 2 alleged Ukrainian accomplices were indicted for war crimes by Ukrainian prosecutors, following accusations of forced relocation of numerous orphans from Kherson, a city in the south previously under occupation. Ukraine alleges the illicit transfer of over 19,000 children to Russia or territories under Russian control. These charges are part of a broader inquiry conducted in conjunction with the International Criminal Court, headquartered in The Hague. Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, has announced that a decision regarding Iran's full membership in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, will be made in the upcoming week. In an online briefing on June 30th, Lavrov added that a memorandum outlining Belarus's obligations for SCO membership will be signed on July 4th. The SCO currently includes China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Furthermore, Lavrov has urged for the expansion of the UN Security Council to better represent Asian, African, and Latin American nations, arguing that this would counteract what he perceives as Western global dominance. Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, has voiced his country's refusal to the European Commission's proposal to allocate additional funds to Ukraine. Speaking at the EU summit in Brussels, Orbán rejected the suggestion as ridiculous, particularly given that Hungary itself has not yet received funds from the EU's Recovery Fund due to an ongoing dispute over rule of law issues. This reflects Hungary's unwillingness to shoulder the burden of increased debt service costs for the European Union. Human Rights Watch, HRW, reported on Friday that it found new evidence of Ukrainian forces using banned anti-personnel landmines indiscriminately. HRW has urged the Ukrainian government to investigate their use, uphold its commitment to not using such weapons, and hold those responsible accountable. Steve Goose, HRW's arms director, stated, "The Ukrainian government's pledge to investigate its military's apparent use of banned anti-personnel mines is an important recognition of its duty to protect civilians. Anti-personnel mines, which can be detonated by a person's presence, proximity, or contact, pose long-term risks as they can kill or maim people long after a conflict ends." Ukraine ratified a 1997 international treaty banning such mines and mandating the destruction of weapons stocks in 2005. HRW had earlier issued a report in January that stated Ukrainian soldiers fired rockets, scattering thousands of PMF-1 mines in Russian-occupied areas in and around the eastern city of Izium between April and September 2022. This occurred prior to Kiev's forces recapturing the area. HRW stated that it had shared its findings with the Ukrainian government in a letter in May, but it did not receive a response. In the Tavria direction, Russian troops have suffered significant losses over the past day, with nearly 3 companies being lost and 13 units of military equipment destroyed, according to General Oleksandr Tarnovsky, the commander of the Operational Strategic Group of Troops, Tavria. General Tarnovsky posted on Telegram, stating, "In Tavria direction, our army is systematically pushing back the enemy and burning their positions. Over the past day, the enemy's losses in killed and wounded amounted to almost 3 companies. 13 units of military equipment and weapons were destroyed. Since February 24, 2022, to June 30, 2023, Ukrainian troops have reportedly eliminated approximately 228,340 Russian invaders, including 560 soldiers in the past day alone. This indicates a high level of resistance and effectiveness of Ukrainian forces in the ongoing conflict." Charles Michel, the president of the European Council, has made it clear during a 2-day EU summit held in Brussels on June 29, 30, that while the specifics regarding military coordination and cooperation with Ukraine will not be disclosed, the overarching aim is to strengthen the Ukrainian armed forces. This support is geared towards bringing the Ukrainian military closer in line with the standards of European armies and NATO. He emphasized, "What we are doing with the massive support we are bringing to Ukraine in terms of military equipment is making the Ukrainian army closer to the European Union and closer to NATO." The EU leaders at the summit reviewed the situation in Ukraine and reaffirmed their unwavering determination to continue supporting Ukraine. In terms of the EU's defense strategy, Michel is confident that significant progress will be made. He added, We understand on the EU side that we really need to adapt our industrial strategy in order to make sure that it will be in line with our ambition for a real European defense. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has assured that the situation in Belarus is under continuous observation from Ukraine. This information comes following a meeting held by the staff of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief regarding the situation at the front and the potential threats from Belarus. In a post on Telegram, Zelensky stated, "The decision of the staff, Chief Commander Zaluzhny and Commander of the North Nayev, was to implement a set of measures to strengthen this area." This comes after Alexander Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, confirmed the arrival of the Wagner PMC leader Prigozhin in Belarus. Russian President Vladimir Putin also stated that the Wagnerites could sign a contract with the Russian Defense Ministry or move to Belarus. However, Zelensky is convinced that the contingent of the Wagner PMC in Belarus will be insignificant. He cites the fact that over 20,000 Wagnerites have already been taken down by Ukrainian defense forces as the reason for this belief. In the Bakhmut direction, significant combat took place with 10 engagements leading to over 100 invaders being killed, according to spokesman for the Eastern Group of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Serhiy Chervaty. He further noted that during the day, the enemy launched 445 attacks using cannon artillery and multiple rocket launchers, along with carrying out 2 air raids. The engagements resulted in an additional 166 enemies wounded and 6 captured. In the Lyman-Kupiansk direction, there were 3 engagements, with the Ukrainian forces killing 22 occupiers and the enemy launching 303 attacks. The Ukrainian defense forces have reportedly seized the strategic initiative and are currently advancing near Bakhmut in the Donetsk region. This continuous military action demonstrates Ukraine's ongoing resilience and determination in the face of Russian military aggression. This is truly a tragic event with both ecological and cultural implications. Jarolgok Island, which is part of the Jarolgok National Nature Park, is home to diverse and vital ecosystems. Its destruction not only represents a significant loss of biodiversity, but also an assault on Ukraine's natural heritage. This event underscores the broad impact of war, which extends beyond immediate human casualties to include long-term environmental damage. Such actions have potential long-term repercussions for local ecology, biodiversity, and climate change, and they could take decades, if not centuries, to recover. The burning of vegetation could also affect local communities that depend on these ecosystems for their livelihood, thereby exacerbating the human cost of the conflict. International law generally prohibits the use of tactics in armed conflict that cause severe, long-term damage to the environment. The complete destruction of all vegetation on Jarolgok Island by the Russian forces is not only a military strategy, but also an ecological disaster. It's essential for global entities and organizations to pay attention to these ecological impacts, as the recovery of these areas post-conflict will need significant resources and efforts. The uncertainty surrounding General Sergei Surovikin's current situation reflects the complex dynamics within the Russian military establishment and the potentially chaotic situation unfolding as the conflict continues. Given his importance as the head of Russian aerospace forces and deputy commander of their forces in Ukraine, his absence from public view and rumors of his possible arrest have drawn significant attention. If the reports of his detention are accurate, it could suggest a major rift within the Russian military, particularly if he indeed had prior knowledge of the Wagner Group's attempted uprising, as suggested by U.S. intelligence sources. Such a rift could potentially have significant implications for the conduct of the war and the cohesion of Russian military forces. However, the contradictory reports and lack of clarity on his status make it difficult to draw firm conclusions at this stage. The suggestion by Sergei Markov, a Kremlin-linked political scientist, that Surovikin is merely being questioned as a highly informed source might imply a less drastic situation. Still, the uncertainty itself can contribute to perceptions of instability and disarray within the Russian command structure. The alleged link between Surovikin and the Wagner Group, as suggested by documents seen by CNN, could further complicate the picture, as it may indicate a deeper involvement of the general in the activities of this private military company. The Kremlin's refusal to clarify the situation could be a tactical move to keep their internal affairs undisclosed, or it might simply reflect a lack of clear information or a desire to avoid publicly acknowledging any potential rifts or problems within the Russian military hierarchy. This situation should be monitored closely, as the fate of Surovikin could potentially have significant implications for the course of the conflict and the internal dynamics of the Russian military. The meeting between President Volodymyr Zelensky and Del Loy Hansen, the founder and CEO of the Wasatch Group, highlights an important example of international philanthropy supporting Ukraine during its conflict with Russia. The initiative to build 600 fully furnished modular homes in the Kyiv region by 2023 to 2024 will provide much-needed relief for people who have been displaced or whose homes have been destroyed due to the war. This project, in partnership with the To Ukraine with Love charity organization, demonstrates a significant commitment to assisting in Ukraine's recovery and resilience. The additional project of building residential buildings for homeless elderly people across several regions of Ukraine reflects a thoughtful approach to the humanitarian crisis. The concept of the Hansen's Village multi-apartment residential complex provides a comprehensive solution for the vulnerable population groups affected by the war, including the elderly, war veterans, widows, orphans, and those with disabilities. The project's inclusion of medical and emotional care centers, as well as physical therapy and art therapy services, points to a holistic approach to community support. Hansen's reference to the project potentially replacing family-type orphanages destroyed in the war aligns with First Lady Olena Zelenska's ongoing efforts to restore these critical institutions. These initiatives illustrate the role that international partnerships and philanthropy can play in addressing the extensive damage and displacement caused by the conflict in Ukraine. They also underscore the importance of providing comprehensive, community-centered solutions to support those most affected by the war.